Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, Kentucky is out again. And we're going to do an NCAA tourney update. And, of course, the Vols, they had a blowout win against St. Peter's. We're going to talk about all that. And will John Calipari get fired? That's a good question. A lot of people want him to be fired, and it's going to be very expensive. So we're going to get into all of that. Now, I didn't do a show yesterday. I was out at the golf course.
I was unavoidably detained.
Exactly. I was unavoidably detained. But I did want to cover this because this is some pretty interesting news. Now, John Calipari's had several really rough years. He's had all these great 5 stars. He's gone in the transfer portal, got players of the year, and done all these things. But every time they get into March, they've really struggled. And they've now been knocked out not once, but twice in the first round against a 14 seed and a 15 seed. One was St. Peter's, who we played yesterday, and the other one is Oakland, which got them last night. And we'll get into that. And this is in Bleacher Report by Andrew Peters. Said Kentucky fans want John Calipari fired after March Madness upset loss to Oakland. And here you're going to see everybody on Twitter said there's a very real chance John Calipari has coached his last game at Kentucky. Here's another one. As a longtime Kentucky fan, I think I speak for all Wildcat Nation when I say John Calipari needs to be fired and his $33 million buyout paid in full. Here's one. Calipari needs to be fired. It says basic annual pay, Kentucky's Calipari, $8.5 million. Oakland's Greg Campy, $329,000. Another guy says, I think all Kentucky fans who wanted Calipari fired a few years ago are more or less vindicated. Another guy says this is 100% a fireable offense. And it just goes on and on and on. And I'm trying not to rub it in too much because, honestly, this is a loss that really hurts, and I can understand it. It really is tough. I thought Kentucky was going to have a nice run in this NCAA. They've got the offense. They can score like crazy. They've really got some good shooters. And they've got a veteran who played great yesterday. But for some reason, they can't get past the first weekend in the NCAA, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. They were the hottest team in the SEC towards the end of the season. They won 4 straight. They even beat my Vols at Thompson Bowling. So I thought they would have a decent run. Didn't happen. Now, I rarely will do Kentucky where I don't at least show you Kentucky Sports Radio because they cover Kentucky as well as anybody, probably more than anybody. And I like the fact they're extremely honest with their opinions. They won't hold back. They'll just tell you what they think. So let's see what KSR has to say about this.
I would say this is unprecedented. I would say this is unthinkable. But unfortunately, we're kind of used to this stuff at this point. Kentucky falls once again in the NCAA tournament, one and done, just like SEC tournament in Nashville, just like 2 years ago against St. Peter's, 80-76, a loss to the 14th seed Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Suffered at the hands of Jack Golke, the one guy that we kind of talked about ad nauseum leading up to this is the three-point sniper that you just can't leave open, can't give open shots. He was the one guy that...
and that guy was unbelievable. If you watch that game, those weren't wide open threes he was making. They were all over that dude. And a couple of those shots, they were fadeaways. There was a couple where he was flying to his side just to get open enough to make the shot, and somehow it would go in. He only takes 3-point shots, by the way, this gunky guy. And I think 10's got to be some sort of a record. But anyway, it was a heck of a ball game, and it was down to the wire. And I kept thinking, and I'm sure you did too, that Kentucky was going to pull this out and that they would take over the game in the second half because they had so much height advantage, so much talent advantage. They just couldn't do it. Their freshmen were ice cold. And that can happen in the NCAA, man. That can happen to you. And it's a fickle game. And they couldn't hit anything. And I don't understand why they didn't go inside more because they had such a huge height advantage. Oakland didn't have any tall guys. And they had them in foul trouble in the first half, but they just kept chunking up those threes. I'm like, man, what are you doing, Calipari? You've got this gigantic advantage inside. I would just have bullied them. Just keep feeding it in there. And eventually they'll collapse, and then you'll have all the wide open you want. Although they had plenty of wide open threes. They really did. They just didn't hit them. But let's see what else they've got to say.
I do feel like there's a sense of relief because it feels like of all of the scenarios in this tournament that could happen after this crazy season, there seems like there is going to be some certainty, I hope. Some clarity about paths forward, what will happen. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with John Calipari's future, but to me, it kind of feels like the writing's on the wall. And we just can't keep going forward like this.
If we don't get the end result we're looking for, then what would it take? There is no recruiting class. I hated the comments that Cal made after the game saying, well, I'm just really excited about next year's group. It's one that I really trust. This was that. You can't just keep gaslighting this fan base and saying,
I just, all the talk right now about like he can't come back next year, and that seems to be like there aren't very many people that are saying otherwise, and I never ever thought ever that this is where we would be with John Calipari. I never thought that it would be like this.
So I think that tells you where the Kentucky fan base is, and I can tell you all over social media that's all you're hearing is people that are they're distraught. And look, basketball is a huge deal in Kentucky. It's as important as football is at Alabama or Tennessee or anywhere else. And we care about basketball. We love it, but it's not football. At Kentucky, basketball is their number one. They care about that above all other sports, including football. So this is a loss that's it's bitter, and this has been years in the making. With Calipari, he's a great recruiter, probably the best recruiter in college. Well, he is the best recruiter in college basketball. But his coaching skills, they're okay, but they're not great. And it's really showing when you get into March. Now, look, he can't go out there and shoot the basketball for the guys. I can't sit here and blame it all on him. But to not pound that ball inside with that huge advantage you had makes no sense to me at all. I kept watching that game saying he's going to take over the inside. There's just no way he's not. He's got 3 7-footers. Their tallest guy was probably 6'7". Made no sense at all. But anyway, that's Kentucky right now. And $33 million, I don't think they'll come up with that, even though they really would like to let him go. And Calipari's not the type of guy that's going to cut a discount for you. Even if he wants to go, he'll want every dollar. That's just how he rolls. So we'll see how it plays out. I put it at about 25% chance they'll fire him. 75% they'll just say, okay, well, let's keep moving and we'll just deal with it. Now let's talk about the Vols. They had a great game against St. Peter's, and it was pretty much a drubbing, 83-49. And we'll go into some of these stats here. Adu had 15 points. He played a very nice game, 5 for 6 from the field. Dalton Connect scored 23, his normal game, 8 for 15, 4 from 8 from three-point line. Ziegler scored 11. He always plays well. Vescovi made a couple threes. I was really glad to see that. And then Awaka only played 11 minutes, but he was fantastic. Scored 8 points, got 4 rebounds. He's just a very efficient player. And then Gainey played 21 minutes, scored 6 points. Thought he played pretty decent. And Meshack played a lot of minutes, played great defense. And we shot 45% from three-point line. That's a great number, 50% from the field. And we shot okay from the free throw line. And I know a lot of y'all have given me a lot of grief because I've been saying that the SEC tournament got tanked by the top 3 seeds, which was Tennessee number 1, Alabama number 2, or Kentucky was number 2. Alabama was number 3. And they all lost in the first round of the SEC tournament because I think they don't want to play 3 games in a row and then have a quick turnaround and play 2 tournament games in the NCAA because they never play 3 games in a row, and it doesn't help your seeding any. If you noticed, Auburn stayed the exact same seed they were going into the SEC tournament, and they won the whole thing. And their reward was as they had to fly 2,400 miles to Spokane, Washington, the furthest point they could possibly be from Auburn.
That's not fair!
Don't raise your voice to me.
That was their reward. So I hate saying that as an athlete myself. You know, I played golf, Division I, which that's obviously not basketball, but, you know, you go out there and you play your best no matter what. But you see it in the NBA, you see it in the NFL. It's called load management. A lot of the teams, they'll have their players take off and they don't care about the last few games if it doesn't help their seeding. Well, the NCAA refuses to take the tournament play into consideration unless you somehow win the tournament and then you get an automatic bid. If you're already in, which you probably are going to be anyway if you do win a tournament, it doesn't do anything for you. I mean, how does Auburn not move up a seed? That's just crazy to me. Same thing happened to the Vols a couple years ago. We beat Texas A&M in the final, SEC tourney, didn't get moved up a slot. And I think Rick Barnes saw that. And he's talked about it. He's like, why even do this? Why are we doing this tournament? So everybody in Tennessee was concerned about the Vols because, they lost to Kentucky that last game after. It's like ever since they won the SEC tournament, I think there was a letdown Kentucky came up and beat us at Thompson Bowling, and then we, dogged it in that first game against Mississippi State in the SEC tournament, but then we turned it on. So I think our guys are very well rested. If you notice the minutes that they played, Adu only played 20 minutes, Connect 29, Ziegler 31. That sounds like a lot, but a lot of times he plays like 37. Vescovi 26, James 22, and all down the line, nobody hit 30 minutes except Ziegler. So we're a very well-rested team, and we're playing tomorrow night at 7 o'clock against Texas. And that's a big-time rematch between Coach Barnes and his former team, the Longhorns. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the TV executives might have had something to do with this matchup.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I'm looking forward to that game. It should be a really good one. Texas beat some small team by about 12 points, played good defense. They didn't score a ton of points. It was like 56-44. So anyway, this should be a great game. And hopefully we make it to the Sweet 16. Now let's do an NCAA tournament breakdown. And a lot of the games are being played tonight or today. And let's just go over the ones that have already played. NC State beat Texas Tech, which was a bit of an upset. And then Kentucky being number 3, that's the biggest upset of the year so far. Oakland's going to be playing NC State, so you got 2 upset Cinderellas playing each other, which is unique. Gonzaga moved forward. Kansas moved forward by only 4 points. Sanford gave them a run, man. This shocks me. I did not expect South Carolina to get whooped like that. I thought they would play Oregon much better than that, but they didn't. They got whooped. So Oregon's going to play Creighton. Creighton's a very good team, good 3-point shooting team. And here you see Texas and Tennessee. They moved forward. Then over here on the other side of the screen, Arizona moved forward, no problem. Dayton, North Carolina handled Wagner very easily. Michigan State beat Mississippi State, beat them bad. I did not expect that. I thought Mississippi State would go a game or two. They didn't. Makes the SEC not look so good. So yeah, the SEC lost three games yesterday. That's no bueno. So I'm very disappointed in that. I really expected South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Kentucky to move forward. Now, I'm not sad Kentucky lost. Don't get it twisted. But I did expect Mississippi State and South Carolina to move forward. They didn't. So maybe SEC's not as good as we thought. I don't know.
How dare you?
We'll see. NCAA, it's such a crapshoot. It's who's hot, who's hitting their shots. So we'll keep tabs on it. Like I said, it's just getting started. But anyway, good start for the Vols. And I'll keep tabs on this Kentucky situation. I'm sure that it'll get heated up for a while. But again, $33 million, that's a lot of money for the University of Kentucky. That just is.
Comes in pretty handy down here, bub.
Oh, tut.
They'll probably stick with him, but they're not happy. And they're going to give him a lot of grief all offseason. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all this big college news. If you've not subscribed, right here on your right, my left, if you'll hit that little button, it'll cost you not a dime, and it helps me out. And right over here is the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we will see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.